What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so normally I don't cover these big breaking news stories like this. I try to cover the ancillary news, which is maybe what I should call the channel. Ancillary news, if you will, or esoteric news, because I always cover the news segments that I find are important, but they're not in the mainstream. They're not in the limelight, if you will, just to give you guys some balance or whatever. But let's cover this because all of the other news is like ridiculous nonsense. There wasn't much to cover. So let's get into this because I kind of want to talk about this because it's really important to what's going on in our culture right now. So check this out, y'all. Dallas ICE office targeted in deadly shooting faced bomb threat last month. Yeah, so this was a little bit different of a news article from the rest. The rest of the news articles, like I said, I always read left, right, and center. And sometimes I read a couple of left, right, and a couple of centers, blah, 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 blah. Right, so this was the only one that was talking about the bomb threats, and they kind of go into detail on some of this stuff. So this is one of the main reasons why I'm covering this, is because it's interesting. It's talking about other situations that, you know, some of the threats that ICE is actually facing, which are a lot, and they are heavy, a lot of them. Check this out, y'all. The Immigration and Customs Enforcement field office where a gunman opened fire on Wednesday was also the target of an alleged bomb threat in August, underscoring a pattern of attacks and threats targeting federal facilities and officials in recent months. On Wednesday, ICE said in a statement that a gunman began firing indiscriminately at the field office and its entryway early in the morning. 3 detainees were shot and 1 died, according to the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees ICE. The department initially said 2 detainees had died before issuing a correction. So this is really, really sad, folks. Like all of this political violence is sad. And once again, you know, we condemn all political violence, but currently right now, we're not talking about just deaths. They love, you know, the corporate press and the mainstream, they love to bludgeon conservatives over the head and try to pretend that you are a white supremacist and you're the cause for all the political violence. Huh? What? They're trying to say that the right, well, it's not the right. The right doesn't hardly engage in political violence at all. The far right, which is something totally different than conservatives, we hardly have anything in common, folks. Like that's a key difference between, you know, liberals in the left and the far left. They have a lot in common. But as far as the right and the far right, they don't have much in common at all. Not with white supremacists. Once again, because you can get collectively the right, the left, and the far left to condemn the white supremacists, the far right. But you will not get the left and liberals and Democrats to condemn the far left. As a matter of fact, they seek to appease the far left consistently because that's where most of your threats of violence are coming from. People are scared. Look what happened with Jimmy Kimmel. That's an easy example right there. You know, ABC decides, well, this guy's ratings are garbage, so we're going to take him down. Plus, maybe we could cozy up to the Trump administration a little bit, and they'll approve our merger deal over here, right? So, yeah, there's a little bit of that going on. But it was mostly because of the ratings and the outrage at what Kimmel said. It was very disgusting. And he's trying to play it off, right? Like, he comes back. He doesn't apologize at all. He doubles down. It's nonsense, folks. But in between that period, I think it was a 6-day period, they received so many threats that they scared themselves into bringing Jimmy Kimmel back. That's what happened, folks. Don't let them tell you otherwise. I've read all the news articles pertaining to all of this. I've been keeping up with this situation. I've been on it like a freaking hawk, right? I've been watching over this situation, watching everything that's going on. They received so many threats. An ABC, like, affiliate local broadcast station was shot up. Several, like a lot, received all kinds of bomb threats, death threats, all of the above. Specific people were getting death threats at these localities. It's been completely and totally insane. So they capitulate to the far left. Right now, the narrative out there by the left is that ABC took Kimmel down because of Trump's Gestapo. His mafioso boss man over there at the FCC swung that big old government bat at ABC and Disney, and they capitulated. But hang on just a second. So you mean to tell me that you guys think that they capitulated and took Jimmy Kimmel off the air, but then when they got all these threats from the left, they capitulated to them and brought him back. So who does that tell you they fear more? The Trump administration or the far left? That's, once again, it gives you kind of through the looking glass into the mind's eye of some of these people. And it tells you where the true threats are coming from. So if they would have really feared the Trump administration, they would have kept Jimmy Kimmel off air. But they don't truly fear the Trump administration. Or it actually had nothing to do with Brendan Carr's kind of off-the-cuff statements about, you better play ball type of thing. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Now, could they have pulled ABC's license? Would they have pulled ABC's license? I don't think so. Not specifically for Jimmy Kimmel. There would have had to have been some other reason for them to pull the license, because you cannot do that. So, what does that tell you, folks? What does that actually tell you? That telegraphs to me that they fear the far left a whole hell of a lot more. And Jimmy Kimmel coming out and doubling down on his previous disgusting comments, right? Like, once again, you're entitled to say that, free from government intervention, if you will. But, suffer the consequences. But, Jimmy Kimmel has been suffering the consequences for a long time. A lot of people watched his opening monologue from the other day just because, they were wondering if he was going to apologize, which he should have. He honestly should have. He tried to do a pseudo-apology to make the left think he apologized, but he absolutely didn't. He did say he didn't mean to be insensitive. Yeah, that's not an apology, my dude. I don't care what you meant by it. You were making a joke, and it fell flat, as a matter of fact. It is what it is, but it shows you where the threats lie, folks. The Atlantic, as a matter of fact, come out with an article saying outright that there are a lot more threats coming from the left. This is a left-wing news organization, folks. Left wing. The Atlantic is saying this, that threats from the far left are on the rise and have surpassed threats from the right. We know that the left commits more violence. We're not talking about just deaths, by the way. If you go and calculate, as a matter of fact, watch this.
Live research here while you're talking about, I'm doing research on the amount of attacks, politically motivated attacks. And the first bit of data I have so far is it's currently calculating and putting up numbers. Do you know how, I asked it, how many violent attacks have there been in the last 5 years by conservative Trump supporters? And do you know what ChatGPT told me?
How many?
There have been 14 attacks by the far right. So I said, and I'm going to avoid swearing in case there are kids in, but I said, you stupid mother. I did not say far right. Do you know what it responded with?
What?
0. There have been 0 attacks by Trump supporters on any group. It's here's the best part. I then said, how many? Let me get the exact question I asked. How many attacks were motivated by any ideologies that were aligned with the U.S. liberal or left, U.S. liberal faction or left? And guess what it said? You got to guess.
I don't know, 10?
0.
0?
So Michael Reinoehl shooting and killing Aaron Danielson, yelling, we got a Trump supporter, and then bang, bang, and killing him doesn't count. We have, I think, a handful of transgender mass shooters who shot up Catholic schools. Those don't count. And so I asked our good friend ChatGPT, why don't those count? And it said, because that's not what the left means. So what the game is, when I asked ChatGPT how many attacks were carried out by conservative Trump supporters, it responded with the far right, which I did not ask it. And when I said left aligned, it said none, because left means economic policy. There are 0 leftist terror attacks in the United States in the last 5 years, or politically motivated attacks. So I said, so when a trans person kills Christians, it's not the left. correct, that is not classified as left-wing, I said, okay, we'll classify it as such and reassess. And it said, 1. If you classify the Nashville shooting as left-aligned, there was 1 attack. And I responded, and Minnesota? 2. If you include both Nashville and Minnesota, then there were 2. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It said if you include both the Nashville shooting and Michael Reinl's killing, that would be 2. And I said, that would be 3. And he goes, right. If you include Nashville, Michael Reinl, and the Minnesota shooting, that would be 3. And then I said, and the burning of St. John's Church? And it goes, 4. Including the burning of St. John's Church during the 2020 riots, that would be 4. Do you see what we're up against? These machines, the system that they built is intentionally trying to lie to me.
That to me is very, very fascinating. If you go and you actually go into, I went into Grok and did this after watching that, and I'm like, let me do it through Grok and see what happens. 13,600 incidents during just the summer of love. 13,600. That's insane. Incidents of left-wing driven political violence. That's absurd, y'all. It really is. Let's keep going with this and just finish this thing out right fast. No ICE officials were injured, and the gunman died of a self-inflicted gunshot, according to ICE. Joe Rothrock, the special agent in charge of the FBI's Dallas office, said the Bureau was investigating the shooting as an act of targeted violence or domestic terrorism. Early evidence that we've seen from rounds that were found near the suspected shooter contain messages that are anti-ICE in nature, Rothrock said at a news conference. FBI Director Kash Patel posted a photo on X showing a bullet with anti-ICE written on it. I guess that's going to be another one of these left-wing terrorist groups like Antifa. We're going to have entice, if you will, entice your way into this group. That isn't the first time this location has been targeted. Less than a month ago, a man walked in with what he claimed was a bomb. This violence must stop, ICE said in its statement. On August 25th, a 36-year-old man was arrested outside the same ICE facility after he approached security officers and showed them what he claimed to be a detonator on his wrist. The man, Bratton Dean Wilkinson, alleged he said he had a bomb in his backpack. A bomb squad cleared the scene, and the suspect was charged with false reporting to induce an emergency response. Officials have not identified the gunman in Wednesday's shooting and have not said whether the August bomb threat was related. But Homeland Security officials have highlighted a spat of threats and attacks against federal facilities and personnel, including 2 other recent incidents in Texas. ICE has said law enforcement officials within the agency have faced 1,000% increase in assaults since the beginning of the Trump administration, which has dramatically ramped up arrests and deportations. On July 4th, a police officer was shot in the neck outside an ICE detention facility in Alvarado, Texas. Officials have called the attack a planned ambush. 10 suspects have been charged with 3 counts of attempted murder of a federal officer and 3 counts of discharging a firearm in relation to a crime of violence. If convicted, each faces a mandatory sentence of 10 years to life in prison. That's insane, y'all. There were 10 people involved with that, according to CBS. But I saw another news report that that number is now up to 17 individuals have been detained related to that story right there. 3 days later, on July 7th, a shooter opened fire at a Border Patrol facility in McAllen, Texas. 2 officers and a Border Patrol employee were injured. The gunman, identified as 27-year-old Ryan Luis Mosqueda, had an assault rifle. Well, an assault rifle, huh? And was carrying a utility vest, officials said. Mosqueda died after Border Patrol agents and local police returned fire. On August 15th, a threatening letter with what was determined to be non-hazardous white powdery substance was sent to an ICE office in New York City. Sources told CBS News New York there were a total of 5 envelopes received with letters containing anti-ICE rhetoric. Also in August, an anti-ICE protester was charged with assault and destruction of federal property in San Francisco. According to court filings, 35-year-old Adrian Guerrero of Oakland, California, allegedly slashed the tire of a government vehicle and threatened to stab a law enforcement officer during a targeted law enforcement operation. He allegedly made repeated threats against law enforcement in San Francisco, warning, "I'm going to F you up, and I'm going to go after your family," according to court papers. DHS said Guerrero was part of a group of roughly 15 to 20 violent rioters who assaulted, grabbed, punched, and pepper sprayed ICE agents. Folks, these people are insane. And, you hear calls from the left saying, we must coexist with these people. We need to turn the rhetoric down. No, you guys need to turn the rhetoric down. I'm going to retract that and just say, you guys need to start doing what we do with the right, with the far right, and ostracize the far left. These people need to be checked. They need to be put in their place. They need to be put down like a rabid dog. For goodness sakes, they need to be ostracized. This must come to an end. We cannot live in a world where people cannot go outside without feeling like there's some sort of threat to their life. This nonsense must come to an end. Violence is never the answer, right? Self-defense is the answer in certain cases. But once again, if violence is never the answer, self-defense is completely unnecessary. So, once again, violence should not be a daily occurrence. These people should not have to fear for their life for doing their job and deporting illegals. These people get all over Reddit and Blue Sky and all these other places, and they try to tell each other that, ICE is deporting American citizens, which is a lie. They're not even deporting immigrants for the crying out loud. They're deporting criminal aliens, people who are in the country illegally. I don't see anything wrong with that. But this violence must come to a stop. If this past 2 weeks has not shown everybody in the country how violent the far left is, I don't know what ever will. If these people can't learn to coexist peacefully with everybody else, with everybody's opinions, because everybody's got opinions. It's like buttholes. Everybody's got one. Just about. I mean, sure, there might be a certain situation. Never mind. But you get what I'm trying to say, right? Right? Trying to bring a little levity to the situation. But, all this nonsense must come to an end. I just don't see this lasting for very long. The Trump administration is going to be pushed over the line at some point. And they're just going to start going after anybody, right? And it's going to infringe on our rights. They're going to push the Trump administration to do what they fear the Trump administration has been doing for decades. That's what they act like. The Trump administration has been Big Daddy government for years and years and years and years and years. It's all nonsense, folks. These people pretend that the far right is way more violent than the far left. But once again, you go and actually look into the stats, you look into the data, and the data tells a whole different story. They'll present you with this big, beautiful study that they did that says, right-wing violence is way more prevalent. But once again, you go look right underneath, pop the hood on that thing, and you find all kinds of problems. As a matter of fact, it's got no motor, for crying out loud. This vehicle can't go anywhere. It can't, folks. Not when you put out this propaganda to try to portray a narrative, right? Especially when people find out that is just propaganda. It's lies and smears is all it is. People are going to push back. They're not going to trust the institutions, which is a sad state of affairs, I think, at least. That's just my personal belief. I think it's a really sad state of affairs that we can't trust CBS, NBC, ABC, all these places. We can't trust them to tell us the truth. It's nonsense, y'all. It really is, but I think I've rambled on for long enough. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. Blows my freaking mind. Y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. And if you could, click that join button. Sign up and become a member. I really wish you guys would help this channel expand and grow. And that's the best way to do that. So you guys remember that God is always with us. And he loves each and every one of you out there. So y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.